Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new draft analysis. Um, this is going to be a brand new team for a brand new league. This is for the NBBL, hosted by Nova. So this is going to be a fun draft league. It's not your normal one. It has some high tier terrors. It has some tier ones that are some Ubers in it. So that's quite interesting. Um, so it's a bit more of a higher power scale, some more interesting terrors, but I'm very excited to be competing in it this season. So this was how many coaches was it? It's like 28 coaches across two pools. So it is all sharing one draft board, so it's quite a big draft pool. And it was tiers, not points, so very looking forward to it. I don't think I've actually competed in a tier draft league yet, so this is my first one, and I'm quite excited to get into the team. So the draft involved one tier 1, two tier 2s, two tier 3s, three tier 4s, and three tier 5s. So let's get into it. For the first pick, for my tier 1, I took Latios. I was very late in the draft. I didn't really get a good spot. It's what it is, they happen. And I took my tier 1 last. So I ended up taking, there was about 4 or 5 left over. But I took Latios as my first pick. Dragon Psychic typing. Very cool one. It's quite diverse. It gets quite a bit of coverage. Has access to stuff like Flip Turn. So it does have a momentum. Sorry. Can run a range of different items. So, yep. Won't dwell on this too long. Latios is going to be really cool. Very excited to use it as my tier 1. Next up for the first tier 2, I picked Ting Lu. Ting Lu is an amazing Pokemon to come out of Scarlet and Violet, the most recent game. An amazing ability. Tablets of Ruin, I believe it is, off the top of my head. Lowering the opponent's special attack, I believe Void Chance lowering attack. Yeah, so reducing that special damage that comes in towards it. Ground Dark, such a good typing. Very cool, gets access to a lot of stuff like Spikes and Stealth Rocks. Has Whirlwind, of course, to pivot around. Just some cool niche moves like Ruination to just chip on. So this thing is a very bulky mon. Will be very good to help assist the team with our defenses. Very nice. For the second tier 2, I picked up Galarian Zapdos. I don't think I've ever used this thing in a draft, so I'm very excited to use this. Fighting Flying type. I think it's quite literally only like 5 Pokemon in the entire Pokedex resist this thing's stabs. The Aegislash line isn't in the game. I think it's literally just Goldengo and something else. So this thing, just its stab typing is so strong. Pretty middle, I think it's like around 90s, 100 speed. So pretty good speed tier. Very strong physical attacker. So I am very excited to use this thing as a breaker and just try and rip through the opponent's team. So very excited to use it. But next up, tier 3. So all tier 3s, we had to pick one tier 3, one tier 4, and one tier 5 as our Terra captains. And for the first tier 3 Terra captain, I picked up Regieleki. This is the first Pokemon I drafted. Most of the tier 1s had gone, especially the top ones, stuff like Lugia and Dialga's forms were both gone. And I knew that I just wanted to get a really good Terra captain. If I couldn't get some of the stronger power from the tier 1s, not saying that Latios isn't strong, I wanted to get probably the best Terra captain, I'd say. I've probably successfully picked it up, in my opinion. So I'm very excited to try and use this. Had to be 1 stab typing and 2 other typings. So I have gone with Terra Electric, Terra Flying, and Terra Ice. Electric probably won't really ever get used, but Ice and Flying both have good usage. Ice especially for that Bolt Beam. Regieleki with what, 200 base speed is absolutely stupid. This is the fastest thing. Nothing's going to outspeed it. And with Bolt Beam coverage, it pretty much just hits everything. for neutral if not super effective. That's what Ice and Electric does. So I am very excited to have this thing on my side and not have to face it. But yeah, this thing, it's going to be a strong offense, but it does also get a few things, like it does get Rapid Spin. To remove hazards, if I ever wanted to use a different Terra Captain and bring it along, still bring it along, because this thing does struggle to get any other coverage. I think it gets like Bounce and Ancient Power. So only it gets electric moves and normal moves. So otherwise, from running Terra Blast with Terra moves, this thing is going to be a threat, and I am very excited to use it. Next up, for our next tier 3, I picked up Toxapex. Toxapex is a very good mon. It's definitely fallen off over the past few generations. Stuff like the HP recovering moves, losing their PP, definitely hurt Toxapex quite a bit. But it's still a very good mon. It's such a very heavy defensive regen. It's such an amazing ability. Water poison typing, being able to set up toxic spikes and just chuck around toxic, can just be a threat if teams don't appropriately prepare for it. So that thing's just going to start chipping stuff down, stay healthy, and that's what Toxapex here to do. Really good alongside with Ting-Lu. Ting-Lu can take on some of the like psychic type moves Toxapex doesn't want to go up against, and electric type moves. And Ting-Lu takes on, Toxapex takes on like the water type moves and the fighting type moves that Ting-Lu doesn't want to go up against on the physical side. So those two together are going to be a really amazing pair. Next up is our tier 4s. For the first one, our Terra Captain, our tier 4 Terra Captain is Delphox. I think Delphox is a really cool Terra Captain. I think this mon can be quite slept on sometimes. It's really fast. What speed is it? It's 104, so it's almost just a bit higher than Zapdos is, which I think is really cool. Can utilize choice items really well, choice Specs and choice Scarf. But yeah, that Fire Psychic is also a very strong offensive pairing alongside Terra Fairy and Grass. Probably hits everything for neutral, if not super effective. Grass just helps us take on those water type moves. And Fairy, I didn't actually draft any Fairy types. I drafted 2 Fairy Terra Captains, which is a bit of a spoiler for the next Terra Captain you'll see later. But that's just going to help us go up against those Dragon types, some of the stronger Dragon types. Stuff like that Dialga is going to be like a threat. Potentially the other Lardy, if it got drafted. I believe it did. I believe it was the other one that was saved until the last round. But yeah, stuff like taking on Dragon type moves, it'll do really well against. So I'm very excited to try out Delphox as a Terra Captain. So it'll be very nice to go with. Next up, we picked up Porygon Z. Normally doesn't have a normal type, and I think Porygon Z is a very threatening one. This thing with adaptability just hits stupidly strong. You know, choice specs, try attacks, hyper beams, any other normal type move. It's just going to smack, and it gets some really nice coverage. It gets Bolt Beam coverage, gets Thunderbolt, gets Ice Beam, the same again for Regieleki, it's why it can hit some stuff really strong. What else does it get? It gets Shadow Ball, so it's going to be a strong special attacker for our team, alongside all the other strong special attackers that we've drafted. So, very excited to try out Porygon Z, and it's going to hopefully put in some work. So, very nice, very excited to use it. Our last tier 4 that I picked up is Cloyster. No bans on shell smashing and tearing, so look, depending on how the season's going, there's always a chance I could switch over my Terra to this thing off of Delphox, but I think I'll stick here on Delphox. But that is a possibility. Shell smash and setting up and tearing is always something to be definitely most worried about. Cloyster is also such a defensive wall. It's another thing I wanted to pick up for. It is very bulky on the physical side. Paper on the special sometimes, but absolutely physically bulky, potentially unbreakable. If the opponent doesn't have anything good to bring into this, then it may just be really good to bring into some matchups. you know, I think it doesn't get rapid spin anymore, does it? I know it used to, but I'm not too sure if it gets rapid spin anymore. I don't think it does, which is unfortunate. Would have been nice for Hazard removal, but that's okay. We have another spinner coming up. But yep, Cloyster, Water Ice, just can fire off some strong water and ice type moves, can Shell Smash, potential sweeping demon. I think it hits quite hard on both sides if you score it special. So yep, just cool to pick up an offensive water as well over a defensive one. I think it's always nice to have both an offensive and a defensive water type on the team. So very excited to use Cloyster. Next up for my first tier 5, I picked up Cryogonal. This was the other spinner, nice ice type with levitate, which is really nice. This thing again could be a Terra Captain, but I wanted to pick up something else. I think all tier 5s, all of my tier 5s could be in Terra Captains. So again, there's potential to jump around, but I like my Terra Captain that I have allocated. But yep, Cryogonal is a spinner. Is very bulky on the special side, in opposite to Cloyster, which I think is really cool. It's like what, base 130 special defense, I think, which is really nice. We just lost to a Cryogonal in playoffs, in semis, so that was unfortunate. I had to bring this onto our team, but this thing's really nice. It just can obviously has access to Aurora Veil. I think it also has access to Reflect and Light Screen, which is cool. We can have some screens for the team. Again, it has Rapid Spin. Can boost its defense with stuff like Acid Armor. I'm not too sure if it also gets Body Press. I don't think it does. I think I'm thinking of Body Slam. But yeah, this thing's just able to fire off some strong special Ice type moves. Gets access to Freeze Dry and Blizzards. And access to Flash Cannon to hit Ice types that don't want to take the Ice type moves. And yeah, recovers. I'm not sure if I said that already. But yeah, really cool. This thing is just going to be something that can remove hazards, chip away at the opponent, do some damage over time, and sponge off some of those special hits. So really cool pickup in Cryogonal. Next up for our second tier 5, and our last Terra Captain is Probopass. I've seen this thing put in so much work across some channels like Druby. For you know, I've been watched his videos, and him using Probopass. I went with Terra, it's Rock and Steel type, so just a couple of types we didn't have. But I've gone with Terra's Steel, Fairy, and Fighting. I was contemplating Ghost, so I might potentially switch out Fairy or Fighting throughout the season, potentially Fighting. But I did really need probably another Fairy type, so that's why I added Probopass with Fairy. And Fighting just helps stack off some of those huge body press damage. This thing again has such a strong defense stat. I think it's like 140, 145 maybe. Special defense is also just as fat. So this thing is just can be a wall. So with some really nice defensive terrors, this thing does really well. Potentially why we might consider Ghost throughout the season. But yeah, this thing just can fire off some strong body presses. Has access to hazards. Can be a nice special or physical attacker. I think its attack stats aren't as high as some other things, but this thing is just fat. Gets access to some nice boosting moves though in stuff like Iron Defense and Curse. And it also gets access to Meteor Beam, which is cool to boost its special attack. So yeah, this thing is just going to be fat. It's going to chip on damage over time, potentially. Yeah, just chip on damage for some other mons like Regieleki and Zapdos to clean up in the late game. So I'm very excited to try out Probopass as a Terra Captain this season. And lucky last tier 5, I went and picked up Vileplume as our last one. I think this thing's really cool. I think it's really slept on sometimes. Obviously, it's again quite thick. It's obviously grass and poison, so it suffers in that there's a lot of other grass poisons, which is why it gets overlooked quite often. A lot of better ones like stuff like Victory Ball just does better in the sun. But yeah, speaking of it, sun, this thing does get Chlorophyll potentially. If I wanted to switch up a Terra, make this thing like, I don't know, Water Terra, Chlorophyll, run it against the Sun team if we face those potentially, you never know. Like everything's, you never know what I'm going to come up against, you know. we could be running into anything this season, I think, especially with some of the mons that are potentially being drafted. So yeah, no, I'm very excited to try out Vileplume, especially it also gets effect score. What else is this? This thing's quite bulky and can, what is it? Leech Seeds, it Moonlights, it Strength Saps, Toxic, so another poison type to work alongside Toxapex. You know, never know, those merciless Toxapexes might come out one week. You never know, just gotta try stuff. It gets access to stuff like, what, Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, Leaf Storm, Dazzling Bloom, Moonblast as well, I think, because I know Bloom definitely has it, so Vileplume has it. I think this thing also gets like Swords Dance, so that's funny. Weather Ball as well, I believe. Grassy Glide, Sleep Powder, although we probably would never run that. But yeah, I think Vileplume will be a really cool bulky grass type for our team. And that is the draft analysis for the NPBL. That's going to be the team that we're going to be using. I shall be posting videos for this every week as they come up and done. But yeah, I'm very excited to try out this team. We could, I don't think I'll switch out any of the mons, but we could see some moving around with the terrors. But I do think that it is a very cool team, very to try it out. We'll see how far we can do with it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Have a good one.